Well, to be too, capital G here. Got a couple of sick duels for you guys to check out. The first one is going to be featuring Fortune Ladies and what their support has brought to the table. You know, Konami always has to be kind of careful when they give legacy support to archetypes that are from like 5Ds and GX and DM, because back during those days, there were no hard ones per turns. And if you have an archetype like Fortune Ladies, where a lot of their effects are super powerful because they're essentially supposed to mimic ban cards, they can be like incredibly crazy if you can use them multiple times in a turn. You guys will see exactly what I mean in the second turn of this duel. Fortune Ladies got themselves a bunch of support from Rising Rampage. They got a Rhoda card for the entire archetype in Fortune Vision, and now they have a way of using Fortune Lady Light like more consistently with the new Fortune Lady, the one that's supposed to be essentially Carly from the anime. So Fortune Vision is activated, gets themselves that first copy of the Rhoda effect. Then he has Light on field. It's going to banish because of the future visions, and now that means he can summon any Fortune Lady from his deck. He's going to go for pass, and then he's going to activate their kind of summon from the deck card, the Fortune Lady Calling, and he gets another copy of Light on the field. Now this is important because he can just banish the Light and just summon another monster, and boom, he's going to go for water, draw 2 cards. That's one of the effects in this deck that really can just spiral out of control, is the fact that Fortune Lady Water, when she's summoned by the way of like a Fortune Lady effect, she does actually get to draw you 2 cards. She has a pot of greed built into her, and he's going to end on his synchro monster. So it's a pretty good turn 1 if I don't say so myself. He's dueling against crawlers, a deck historically that's pretty slow because it's flip based, but you guys are going to see the punishment in this second turn. Now here's what's going to happen, right? It looks like he's trying to activate the Fortune Lady Ever, the synchro monster for the archetype, and basically he's trying to blow up the face down crawler monster. His opponent says, I see what you're trying to do. I'm going to flip it face up. Not only am I going to get my flip effect, but also it's going to be removed from the field. Thus, it's actually going to trigger its effect, and it's going to float into 2 monsters. That was actually a smart countermeasure right there, because why lose your monster for free when you don't have to? So now he's going to activate kind of like the return from the different dimension for Fortune Ladies, the Fortune Lady Rewind. It's rewind time. Shout outs to Will Smith. He's going to summon 2 Fortune Ladies back from the graveyard, and now he's going to go into a Link monster. This is where stuff is going to get crazy, right? So he's going to use his Fortune Lady Pass again, and you can remove any number of Fortune Lady monsters from your field or your graveyard or wherever, and he's going to banish both copies of Light. Again, all the old Fortune Ladies, no hard ones per turns on their effect. This means he can summon 2 copies of water from his deck, and each time water hits the field, he's gonna draw 2 cards. Now I want you guys to keep track of how many times he's going to activate that effect, and really how many times this guy is gonna draw 2 in his turn. He's gonna draw 4 cards right here because he has 2 waters, which is already gonna be nuts. He's gonna activate Fortune's Future. He's gonna put a card back in his graveyard from his banish. That's gonna draw him 2 cards, so I think he's drawn 6 cards in this turn. He's gonna go ahead and he's gonna get Fortune Lady Dark. She's going to be pretty nuts as well. Anytime a Fortune Lady monster runs over a monster by battle and destroys it, you get to summon a Fortune Lady from your graveyard. I believe that might happen a couple times. He's going to summon water from his graveyard. I believe that's another draw too. So he's drawn, I believe, a grand total of 8 cards this turn, and he's activated her 3 times. But don't worry, he ain't even done yet. I believe he's going to activate her effect again, get another Fortune Lady water. This is her 4th time activating in this turn. He has drawn 8 cards from this chick in this turn, and just look how many cards he has in hand. This guy has like every single monster zone or every zone in the entire field except the field spell zone full, and he still has a full card or a full hand of 6 cards. This is actually pretty damn nuts. Like, this is what happens when you don't have hard once per turns, man. Like, if you guys never played during like 5Ds and stuff like that, when, you know, there were no hard once per turns, Yu-Gi-Oh was like, it was crazy, man. It was honestly like the Wild Wild West back then. It was like, use my effect once, like, what is that? We'll use our effects 10 times in a turn if we want. Oh, those were the good old days. Anyways, he blows up his opponent's only monster, which I believe was the Crusadia Crawler. It's not doing anything, and it definitely doesn't have any protection from the Fortune Lady ever, so she just blows it up. And he has an open field. All the Fortune Ladies were also gaining levels during the standby phase, and he's able to easily close this duel out. So second duel is actually going to be Mermail versus Prophecy. This kind of feels like a Zexal throwback, and this is actually Johnny Wynn's build. If you guys know Asian Persuasion, the Yu-Gi Tuber, he took this to a regional, I forget, I think it may have been Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he did pretty good with it. He made played like top 32 or right outside top 32. And yeah, it's actually like pretty strong. You guys will see in this duel why that is. So a lot of it comes off the back of Jogan the Spiritualist. It's essentially Fossil Dyna just kind of says, no, you can't special summon anything. And while it's not the strongest monster, this was played way back when the Dragon Ruler spellbook format, because people used to put the spellbook library on it and then you just like crank its attack up constantly. But his opponent is able to out it fairly easily with the heavy infantry, but he doesn't really have like any pop-offs here. Pot of Extravagance is nuts in Prophecy because they have extra deck monsters. I believe that they have a couple of Exceeds, but they're both terrible, so nobody runs them. And he's able to take that, convert that into Blue Boy, Spellbook of Eternity for another search by way of secrets. Now he's able to actually go for power and just start running stuff over. That'll actually just get him a surge. He'll be able to basically refill his hand up. He's getting the Spellbook Tower and he gets a defensive card in Spellbook of Fate. So basically, as long as you can keep getting draw cards and you can defend yourself, you should be okay against most of the meta. Now he did get Kaiju there. I believe his Spellbook of Fate is now offline, but it's fine because his opponent couldn't attack over his monster. Plus the tower is going to give him a draw as well. He didn't get the particular cards he wanted off of Knowledge, but he still has the biggest and only monster on the field. Nephthibis probably should be able to out it here. He'll probably start going for some of those Megalos because he has a billion cards in his hand. So let's see exactly if he can mount them. There's Megalo number 1. And my Mermail, I play the freaking Mermail. I play the equip spell because I know it kind of conflicts with Sekka's Light, but I still want to play it. Runs into Mirror Force with double Megalo. That was a tragedy right there. He ends up having double Megalo and still it finds a way to go into a rank 7. He chooses Red Eyes. You know what? You can make an argument that Draco Sack would have been better here, to be honest. I think Draco Sack maybe popping a back row would have been better. Another Pot of Extravagance is going to be used. He finally is back into his engine with that Blue Boy, and now all he has to do is just go Spellbook of Fate, or actually, no, looks like he's just going to attack over it using Moonmirror Shield. A lot of people are using Moonmirror Shield, like Johnny, he used it with, if basically you put it on Jogan, Jogan can't be attacked at that point because it'll always be 100 attack more than your opponent's monster, and it kind of just slows the game down to where decks like Thunder Dragons and Salamangreats Greats, like no special summoning, and you can't attack my guy. He's going to use Ash Blossom to be used on the Grand Tower, but doesn't matter. He's basically out of cards at this point. And yeah, Prophecy is a really good grind deck, especially because you have that spell, you have the Extravagance, plus you have Spellbook of Knowledge. Basically, every turn you should be drawing 2 to 3 cards, especially if you're combining that with the Grand Tower. So you really shouldn't have turns where you're just drawing 1 card and basically that's it. His opponent summons his Kaiju, but that's met with Spellbook of Fate, and basically that is a GG no re. So let's pause for 1 quick second and let's look at. Let's start with Fortune Ladies. As you guys can see, obviously the 3 most important Fortune Ladies are the 3 that are being maxed out. You have your Fortune Lady Pass. This is the tuner of the archetype, and it's the one that lets you banish your Fortune Ladies, that lets you trigger Fortune Lady Light. You're maxing out on Fortune Lady Light because Fortune Lady Light summons all the other Fortune Lady cards from the deck, and it's not a hard once per turn. And then you have Fortune Lady Water because this is the best one to summon from the deck because it has Pot of Greed built into it. It's not a hard once per turn either. This card isn't just good off Fortune Lady Light, it's actually good off Fortune Lady Dark. You guys saw that in the duel. It was summoned via the Monster Reborn effect multiple times, and each time it was summoned, it was a draw too. So Fortune Lady Water is kind of like the most beneficial one. You also have other Fortune Ladies that are pretty good when they are summoned off of Fortune Lady's effects. For instance, Fortune Lady Fire is kind of like a Ring of Destruction built in. It does actually like blow up one of your opponent's monsters, and then you do some burn damage to them. Fortune Lady Wind can be your Spell and Trap removal card. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. I don't even know if you really need Fortune Lady Earth. I think this card is largely terrible, but if you just want to run it, honestly, I wouldn't even run it. The fact that it's high level also is just a deal breaker. I wouldn't even run this card. You're going to play some of the other new Fortune Lady cards. You have to max out on Fortune Vision. This is the Rhoda for the archetype, so you're going to run 3 of it. Same thing with Fortune Lady Calling. This is one that special summons from the deck. I'm looking at summoning Fortune Lady Water, drawing 2 cards, just going plus in that exchange. You have other cards like Future's Fortune. It's not exactly Destiny Draw because you don't discard anything. You take a banished Fortune Lady, you put it back in the graveyard, you draw 2, and then you have Future Visions, which is just an annoyance card for your opponent. Their monsters are always banished, so they can't do anything with their normal summon, at least not that turn, and it does trigger your Fortune Lady Light instantly, so that's always pretty good. Other than that, just some like good generic cards. things like Called by the Grave, Solemns, Impermanence, what have you. They're returned from the different dimension type card and Fortune Lady Rewind. Does have to summon monsters with different names, unfortunately, but it is a free card. Like, you don't have to actually pay any life points or discard anything like that. So it's definitely a card that can do some damage. Mainly, I would want to summon Light off of it if possible, because then you can just rebanish Light and activate the effect again. And then we've got Asian Persuasion's Prophecy deck. I'm not going to do too much explaining here because he made an entire video for his deck, and if you guys haven't seen that, just go on Asian Persuasion's channel. But this is what the deck looks like on paper. It's very control based, very similar to how Prophecy used to be when Spellbook of Judgment was a thing. Like, these are the same exact monsters that they basically used to run back then. You didn't run any of the other monsters. Jogan, just sit on this card, protect it for days. You can protect it with Fate, you can protect it with Mirror Force, Phoenix with Wind Blast, Solemn Judgment if you're desperate. You can also just put Moon Mirror shit on it, then your opponent can never attack it. Your what's it called? Your High Priestess is kind of like your removal card, and then Blue Boy facilitates, you know, like, well, 50% of the deck, if not more, just searching all the other cards. Extravagance, I think right now is like one of the top 5 cards in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Prophecy doesn't really don't need the extra deck that much. I mean, you're really not gonna have 2 7s on the field at the same time. I mean, you can run these cards, I would run these cards, but the chances of you actually summoning them are basically slim to nil. So why not run Extravagance and make sure that you start every turn with just a quick draw 2, and make sure that you know, you have the most consistent turns possible.